Welcome to the show. I have a great show planned for you this week. Later on, I have with me my guest, Amy Gamble, former U.S. Olympian and now advocate for mental health awareness, treatment, etc. here in the local area, the executive director of NAMI. And we'll be talking all about those things. But first, we'll start with some of our usual features. And I want to start with the movies. I know it's not something I usually talk about here on the show, but it's because I don't usually get to go to movies unless they're cartoons. But I had an opportunity to check out some movies lately, and I forgot how, it's so much fun to go to the movies. I mean, no matter what, if you can watch something on your TV at home or on your phone or whatever you want to do, but just being there with that big screen and hearing the sounds and it being that large in front of you and everything just gives a different feeling and brings out different emotions. And I did see one animated movie recently. I saw Frozen 2. And really enjoyed that. I thought they did actually the storyline's a little bit complicated in some ways for a children's movie, but it was entertaining. But saw also another movie with my kids, Playing with Fire, that has John Cena, and that was fun for the kids. But saw Knives Out, which was a really fun mystery suspense type film with Daniel Craig, and really enjoyed that one. It's kind of like a whodunit type movie, and enjoyed that. But Star Wars coming out, the final episode, a lot of people excited about that, the 9th in the series, and for whatever reason, I just wasn't a huge Star Wars guy growing up, and you would think, given my age and the era in which I grew up, I would be, but I've always enjoyed them, but just not crazy about it and just know everything. I was at Disney World last month, and they opened a new Star Wars land down at Hollywood Studios, and it is unbelievable. If you ever get the chance to go down there, you feel like you are walking through truly like in a Star Wars type movie with the surroundings and everything. It was really amazing how they took such a number of acres and just converted that into making you feel like you're in Star Wars. One of the big rides, so to speak, as part of that was not open yet. It was just opening here, I think, this week. But there was one that was already open. I didn't do it because I get too motion sick. I let my wife take the older kids, and I hung out with the younger ones while they were on that. But they said it was a good time, but it's really worth checking out. But I know a lot of people looking forward to that movie. And I was just thinking about, in addition to the big screen, I still enjoy watching things at home as well, as I mentioned. And this time of year, I love so many Christmas movies. Whether it be Christmas Vacation that I could watch over and over again and laugh at Chevy Chase in that movie, or Christmas Story. I look forward every year onto that marathon starting on Christmas Eve and watching it into Christmas Day. I think I probably watch it, at least parts of it, 5 or 6 different times over that 24-hour period. I still like Home Alone a lot, Elf. I mean, there's just so many funny movies, touching movies, just different, Miracle on 34th Street. You could go on and on with these different Christmas movies, but really a fun time of year for movies because so many of them oftentimes come out around the holidays where kids aren't in school and you can get out to the movies, et cetera, and maybe people off work a little bit. So, but all those that I've seen recently, I recommend and thought they were great shows, so I thought I'd mention them. Give you a legal tip here this week as well, and that is, what is a deposition? I've had people ask me that a number of times. They said, hey, I was in, something happened at work and now I've got to give a deposition, or I witnessed an automobile accident and I've got to give a deposition. What the heck is this deposition thing? So here's what it is. All right, a deposition is an opportunity for one or more of the lawyers involved in a lawsuit to ask you questions while you're under oath. And it's the same oath that you're under if you're in a courtroom. You got to raise your hand, swear to tell the truth, and same rules apply, same law with respect to perjury and all those types of things. So you have to tell the truth. But there's no judge there, there's no jury there. It's typically done in a conference room at a lawyer's office, or sometimes at a library, or wherever it may be, typically a lawyer's office. And there'll be a court reporter there who will type down everything that's said, and then later on they put it in the form of what's called a transcript. It's a little booklet of pages of what was said there. So there's a record of what was said. But both lawyers, or if there's more than 2, if there's 3, 4, get an opportunity to ask you questions. If you have a lawyer, they can be there. If you have a right to always take a lawyer with you if you want to. Oftentimes there's no need if you're just a witness to something and there's really no exposure to you or anything. There's really no need to have a lawyer. But if you're a party to a lawsuit, your lawyer will be there and should be there. But you basically just ask questions. People ask me, well, how long does it last? All different times. I've had depositions that have lasted a half an hour on something basic, and I've had depositions that have lasted 8 hours. Just depends on how involved you were with something and how much information there is to glean. Typically the longer ones are when it involves some type of long type of employment type thing, or a corporate misconduct or something like that somebody was involved in. If you saw a car wreck or something out on the street, or you were driving by and happened to be the car that saw this happen, usually that's more like the half hour to hour type of deposition, pretty short, you get in and out of there. Sometimes you can be subpoenaed to a deposition. If you get a subpoena, you have to show up and appear. That is a effective legal document, and you can be held in contempt for not showing up when you've been subpoenaed. Oftentimes, though, the lawyers will just call you up and say, hey, we'd like to take your deposition. What's a good date for you? And they'll try to work with your schedule. Even if you get a subpoena, you can sometimes call up the lawyer that subpoenaed you and say, hey, I got the subpoena. I know I'm supposed to show up. Would it be okay if we move it to a different date that's more convenient for me? And they'll oftentimes tell you yes, and they'll either reissue a new subpoena for the date that you suggest or whatever it may be. So those are some options when you do have to give a deposition, and there's a whole host of other things that go into it, but that's just kind of a general broad brush overview there. I'm going to give a quote this week here as well. This one comes from actually Aristotle, and I saw it and just happened to like it, so I thought I'd share it with you. He said, moral excellence comes about as a result of habit. We become just by doing just acts, temperate by doing temperate acts, and brave by doing brave acts. And I thought that was a great quote because there's a lot of truth that you aren't just something. You become something by doing it over and over again and making it part of the core of who you are. So I think if you say, boy, I'd like to be honest, well, then tell the truth more often. Get in the habit of telling the truth. You'll be an honest person. I like to be a nice person, do kind things. You do kind things over and over again, you'll be a nice person. So I think a lot of good from that quote, and something we can all remember. We need to take a break, but when we come back, I will have with me Amy Gamble. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Ho, 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 ho. Call Panhandle. Thank goodness.
Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration is ready to handle any size emergency at a moment's notice. From our family to yours, Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Oh, ho, 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 ho.
You can love what you drive.
Sunset Motors continues to be the 2019 Ohio Valley leader in Jeep, Ram, Chrysler, and Dodge sales. Now get employee pricing plus on 2020 models at the Big Finish event. Get a Ram 4x4 for just $28,791, or lease a Bighorn for just $299 per month. Lease a new Compass Latitude for $279 per month, or a Cherokee Latitude Plus for just $289 per month.
You can love what you drive at Sunset.
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and this week's no different. I have with me Amy Gamble, who's the executive director of NAMI. And Amy, really good to have you here on the show.
Thanks for having me today.
I think I said it right this time. I was just saying during the break, I said that name wrong during the first segment. It's NAMI, not NAMI, but I get that corrected here. But NAMI, and that stands for?
NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about that, but first, a little bit about your background. Grew up here in the Valley, went to John Marshall, of course, just a highly decorated athlete, and recruited by the famous Pat Summitt, who to play basketball at Tennessee, and you did that there, but also then transferred and played in a couple other places, WVU, out west, in the bright and sunny, I guess, yep. Pac-12 now, but probably would have been the Pac-8 back then, I guess, and. But took some time in there in between to do, of all things, be an Olympic handball player for the United States. And really cool, only Olympian that I know now, and out of this area especially. So what was that like, representing the United States of America, you know, against other countries in an Olympic type capacity?
It was really amazing. I mean, we just had an Olympic alumni reunion the 1st of November. And to get to be around all the Olympic athletes and just to feel that Olympic spirit again. There's nothing like walking into Olympic Stadium with the American flag and putting on that American uniform that says USA across your chest. It's just a pride that it's just incomprehensible to be able to be in that setting on that world stage. And it's almost like you pinch yourself and think, wow, am I really an Olympic athlete?
Which year was it that you were in the Olympics?
It was 88.
88, so that would have been Seoul?
Seoul, Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And handball, so how'd you get involved with that? It's not like there's a big, handball population or that type of thing here in the Valley anyway.
Right.
So how'd you get involved?
So it used to be that the U.S. Olympic Committee held Olympic sports festivals in the United States every year except the Olympic year. And when I was a junior in high school, I made the Olympic Sports Festival in basketball. a friend of mine, who was a sports writer from New York, his name was Joe Smith. Joe took me to see team handball being played, and he said, when you're done playing basketball, I think you should play team handball. I think you'd be really good. So he kind of planted the seed in my mind, and when I transferred from the University of Tennessee, remembered what he told me, and I thought, wow, you know, maybe I should consider trying team handball, because I really just had this dream of becoming an Olympic athlete, and I thought, maybe things didn't work out so well in basketball, maybe I'll try a different sport, and it worked out.
So where did you train? Where did you go for that? So
we started out training in Marquette, Michigan, and then we ended up training at Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs.
Wow, that's pretty neat. What was it like at that time, you know, going over to Korea, you know, all the way across the world and being there, and you know, here you are and you're relatively young, you know, you're speaking English, and what's that like being in just another culture like that in that capacity?
Well, what was really funny is that because team handball wasn't popular in the United States, we traveled all over the world from the first 3 months we were in training. They came to us and said, oh, we're going on a 6-week tour to Europe. And so the first trip was to Norway, and then Denmark and Sweden. And it was just amazing. Like, you're young, so you just adapt really quickly. And then you just sort of fit in. And the biggest lesson that I learned from doing all that travel was that people are people no matter where you go. Yeah. And you learn how to communicate with people even though you can't speak the language.
How'd you all do? What was the experience like?
In the Olympics, we finished 7th, which really wasn't, you know, we wanted to medal like everyone, you know, wants to medal. But the good thing was that we qualified. And since 1996, neither the men or the women have qualified for the Olympics. Wow. And that's unfortunate because it's really hurt the exposure for the sport. Yeah. And team handball is an absolutely phenomenal sport. I wish there was a way for people in the local area to be able to play it because it's incredible.
Let's turn to kind of your life now, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Executive Director of NAMI, and you know, you've spoken about and talked about the different places, your own mental health battle, so to speak, and kind of how that's led you to where you are today. Sure. And maybe share with our viewers some of that.
Sure. So I've struggled with bipolar disorder, and I actually call it my biggest competitor, because even though I was on that Olympic stage competing against incredible competition and challenged in amazing ways through my sports journey, there's nothing that has challenged me more than dealing with and learning how to manage a mental illness. And then I like to say that I'm winning against it right now because I'm able to manage it well. And so a few years ago, probably about 7 years ago, was at the lowest point in my life, and I made a decision that I could either feel sorry for myself or I could take everything that I learned and I could go out and I could try to help other people. And that led me into my journey with NAMI, and then later becoming the executive director, and really focusing on education, support, and advocacy that in a sense just really helps other people to learn about mental illness and to be empowered to know that there's no shame in having a mental illness.
We need to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a lot more about that and about how you can help others and maybe even how you can help yourself. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Banks did great today. He looks great after his spa day.
For being such a good boy, we'll take these two.
Great.
Thanks to my free Kasasa cashback checking account from Belmont Savings Bank, my Kasasa cash is paying for my dog's treats.
Kasasa pays you cash back on everyday debit card purchases, plus refunds on ATM withdrawal fees nationwide. Open your account today at Belmont Savings Bank to take back banking and enjoy monthly cash rewards with Kasasa.
Welcome back to the show. I've been speaking with my guest, Amy Gamble, former U.S. Olympian and now Executive Director of NAMI here locally. And, you know, let's talk about NAMI. I mean, how is it able to help people? What does NAMI do?
So we provide 9 support groups. We service from Hancock down to Tyler County in West Virginia, and then we work with Jefferson County, Ohio, and Belmont County. And in that, we have support groups for people that are no cost, family support groups. We have a suicide survivor loss support group. We run a grief support group for children, and then the other groups are for people who live with mental illness. And then we just started a family support group. That's a virtual family support group using the Zoom platform technology. And it's really successful. We were able to draw people from all over the state of West Virginia for that. And then we work a lot with the schools, the local schools, with our Ending the Silence program in the middle schools, which is a mental health awareness program that teaches young people the signs and symptoms of mental health conditions, as well as suicide warning signs and how to help a friend. And then what's really exciting is that we just recently finished a pilot program for something called Teen Mental Health First Aid, which if you think about mental health first aid, think about CPR for your brain. And it is we're one of 28 schools or 28 places around the country. It's a program that was gained notoriety from Lady Gaga and the Born This Way Foundation in partnership with the National Council on Behavioral Health. And we got to be a part of the pilot, and we just finished working with 350 students at Wheeling Park and 200 students at Magnolia. And it was so well received at Wheeling Park, they've asked us to come back and do the work with the seniors. So we're going to do that. So we spend a lot of time working with all the schools with Ending the Silence. We hope to really expand our teen mental health first aid program. We teach youth mental health first aid, which is a program that teaches adults who are working with young people. And then we also have adult mental health first aid, a suicide prevention class called Safe Talk, which is suicide alertness for everyone, which is a really important program that communities need to really focus on because the suicide rates are raising significantly. And then we focus some on advocacy as well, really starting to pick up the pace on that, particularly because of things like what we saw happen in our community with the closures of Hillcrest and Robert C. Byrd. So working on trying to impact the mental health care system in ways that help people have better access to care and things like that.
Do you have an actual facility or location where you
we have a lot of good partnerships in the community. We are located at in the YSS building, Youth Services System building on the 3rd floor. We also operate a drop-in center on 18th Street in Wheeling, right next to Catholic Charities, in partnership with them. And so but our office is on YSS building.
If people want to reach out and become involved in terms of maybe they need some help themselves,
sure.
What's the best way for them to go about doing that?
If they contact NAMI Wheeling or go to our website, namiwheeling.org, and fill out the contact form, either that or our Facebook page, NAMI Greater Wheeling. We always respond within 24 hours to the comments. We also have a phone line, 304-218-2864 is our office phone number. And people can reach us and we'll return calls and get back to them.
What should people do if they think that maybe someone that's a loved one, a family member, a close friend is suffering from some type of mental illness? I mean, what's the right thing for them to do? Should they reach out to someone like you? Should they reach out to a medical care provider? What's the best route for them to go in terms of trying to help that person?
Well, the first thing is to sit and have a conversation with that person and pointing out specific behaviors that they've noticed, because the definition of a mental illness is a diagnosable illness that affects a person's thinking, emotions, and behavior and disrupts that person's ability to engage in satisfying relationships, work or go to school, and carry out daily activities. So if a person is having an interference in those things, then you can have a conversation and point out the things that you've noticed. So you could say something like, I've noticed that you're not engaging in activities like you used to. You know, is something bothering you? So you open up the dialogue, have the conversation, and then encourage that person to start out with their primary care doctor and talk about the things that are the symptoms that are bothering them, not just from a physical standpoint, like being tired or being lethargic or what that might look like, but also maybe sleeping way too much, maybe not being able to take a shower or brush your teeth or engage socially. So pointing out those types of things as well. And then go from there as far as seeing a therapist or potentially seeing a psychiatrist.
Now, obviously, with respect to the work that you do, I mean, it takes money to do that, it takes funds to do that. If people want to contribute and try to help with the cause, what can they do there?
You could go to namiwheeling.org. We have a donation section on our website, or they're happy to, you know, we're happy to take donations by way of mail, by check.
What types of things could that help you do right now?
Well, in particular, we're seeking funding to help us expand our teen mental health first aid program, that we want to be able to offer that to all the schools in the local area. And also our Safe Talk program. We want to be able to offer that, to open that to the community and offer as many classes as we can. So those are a couple things that we're doing.
Well, Amy, good luck with your continued work.
Thank
God
you
bless
so
you
much.
for doing it, and really appreciate you being here on the show and hope you have a very Merry Christmas.
Thanks, same to you.
All right, thank you very much. We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll be talking sports. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
A world of Christmas wonder awaits at Ogilvy in Wheeling, West Virginia. Experience the magic of the season.
When reviewing your oil and gas offers or royalty check statements, do you wonder, am I being offered a fair amount? Do I feel comfortable reading the statement? Do I have peace of mind? If you answered no to these questions, you need Bordas Mineral Management. Our passion is helping mineral owners protect and expand their mineral wealth. Our examiners tell you whether you're being treated fairly and getting paid what is rightfully yours. Bordas Mineral Management. Be protected. Have peace of mind.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports, and we'll start in the city of Pittsburgh, where the Steelers won again out west against Arizona, in a game that really concerned me because of the traveling out west. The Steelers don't traditionally do well when they have to travel out to the West Coast, but I would say Devlin Hodges is becoming a household name, but it's really Duck that's becoming the household name, and you know, his nickname, and really has kind of energized the offense. Still not putting up a ton of points, but he just seems to make plays when he has to and doesn't make the critical mistakes. You know, there's going to be, you play quarterback and the ball's in your hands enough, you're going to turn it over some, et cetera. But really, I think has brought some energy there. But let's talk about Deontay Johnson, the rookie wide receiver. I mean, a touchdown catch, a huge punt return for a touchdown that we haven't seen in years from the Steelers. Looking good on a reverse. I mean, really just a playmaker. Reminds me a little bit of someone that I used to know that wore 84 maybe once upon a time, and Antonio Brown, who's really been in the news this week, you know, talking about so many things again, but we won't talk about that. But Deontay Johnson really looks like a great pick, you know, out of the MAC, just like Antonio Brown was, and just really seems to bring excitement when he touches the ball now. So he's really kind of getting into a groove. But the defense of this team is the real story. I mean, every week this team seems to get after quarterbacks, seems to make things happen, whether it be Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, guys that were former Heisman Trophy winners, you know, first overall picks in the NFL draft, and instead you got Devlin Hodges, an undrafted rookie, winning his first 3 games as a starter, first time that's ever happened. But it's really because this defense is doing so much to limit other teams, get the ball back, and cause turnovers. You know, Minkah Fitzpatrick's, what a year he's had. I mean, I think really, you know, a strong candidate for the NFL Defensive Player of the Year award. But now the Steelers have a night game against the Buffalo Bills, and this is a big game. The reason for that is that The Bills and the Steelers currently hold the first and second wild card spots in the AFC. Bills have won one more game than the Steelers. They've got 9 wins, coming in at 9-4, Steelers 8-5. But the Steelers win this game, then they'll have equal records, but the Steelers will have the tiebreaker. That means they'll be the first wild card if things would hold. And that can matter in terms of where you have to go in the first round, where you have to go in the second round of the playoffs perhaps. So big game here, and also in terms of just separating a little bit from the teams behind the Steelers in that wild card race. I think this game will be low scoring. I think the defense will come up big again. It's a night game at Heinz. This game was flexed by the NFL. Originally scheduled for 1 p.m. will now be, in the 8 o'clock hour at Heinz Field. The Steelers just don't lose very often at night at home. The crowd will be fired up crazy, waving the terrible towels. Renegade will be playing late in the game. Be too much for the Bills to handle. And, I think the Bills have really been built on beating a lot of teams that weren't so great for the most part. So I'll take the Steelers to win this one. And a little side note here. Steelers fans want to root for the Baltimore Ravens. I know it's hard for me to even say it, but we want to root for the Ravens right now. The Ravens are 3 games ahead of the Steelers, and the Steelers would have to win all 3. The Ravens would have to lose all 3 of the remaining. That's just not likely to happen. So the Ravens are probably going to win the division. But what the Steelers want now is the Ravens to win the next 2 weeks, this week and next week. So when the Steelers play Baltimore the last game of the season, Baltimore at that point would have the #1 seed in the AFC locked up and would probably rest Lamar Jackson and a number of the other starters against the Steelers in that last game, making it much easier for the Steelers to get a win and keep the hold on that wild card spot. So I actually want the Ravens to win so that they'll rest the starters in that last game by already having the #1 seed locked up. So just keep that in mind. Some college football this week, not much, but Army-Navy, always a big game. That game will be in Philadelphia. So much pomp and circumstance surrounding that. Fun to see, our military out on the field. And those guys play with so much passion and heart. It's so much bigger than football for those players. So fun to watch that game. It'd be exciting. But that night, the Heisman Trophy presentation, Joe Burrow is going to win the Heisman Trophy, and he may win it by the biggest margin ever. What a great season he's had throughout the year. Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, Chase Young will all be there in New York as well. But the trophy's going to go to Joe Burrow. And the playoff matchups are out. Ohio State versus Clemson, LSU versus Oklahoma. We'll be talking all about that on the upcoming show next week. We'll be talking about the playoff. And should the playoff be expanded? You have to tune in next week to hear all about that. Until then, have a great week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on The Jamie Bordas Show.